So recording starting now. This is the libp2p meeting for Monday, September 10, and this will be posted later on the GitHub repo. Okay, Stephen, you're up next.
Can you mute? Sorry, I clicked my thoughts. I did a bit of work on Friday on looking at the number of packets we're sending, and we are sending at least 2x the number of packets we really need to be sending. I worked on this a bit before, but I kind of dropped it because I didn't notice any improvements. Thinking about it, my testing attempts were just wrong. Like I was trying to test bitswap over localhost, which was not the right way to test this. I think if we reduce the number of packets we're sending, we'll significantly reduce the amount of background bandwidth we have for the DHT, and the speed the speed at which we can transfer data across the open internet where we actually drop packets. So if anyone wants to pick this up, there is an issue in GoFS called better buffering. If you just Google that, you'll find it. And yeah, there are some interesting things we can do there. Other than that, I didn't do too much work on libp2p, except random reviews and stuff. Next.
Okay, Raul.
Yeah, hey guys. So I've been working on the peer store. Right now, I'm going to be focusing this week, and hopefully we'll get it rounded up by Friday, on the caching aspects and the caching layouts. We want to make the caching a read-through cache such that when you get a hit on the cache, you have all multi-address for the peers, and you don't need to scan the database and essentially do a prefix scan there. I think that's going to give us some pretty good improvement. We're going to move as well. I'm going to be working on moving over the logic for TTL management as well. And right now I am bug hunting the bug is already identified, and we are talking with Stevalian to find a fix for it. It's on the Yamx and SecIO issue. There's a data race there happening. Basically, it has to do with the way that the connections are, the way that a write fails and potentially times out, and the way that that is not cancelable right now. So the upper layer gets an error while the write is still ongoing, and that's a bit of a mess. So we're finding solutions for that. I put up a proposal about an analysis that I did on the DHT and the traffic that we generate and the way that we perform lookups and how the routing table, the academia routing table, is actually populated and the utilization there. I pinged a few of you in that issue, so if you can, feel free to just contribute to the discussion there. We're considering alternative data structures, and that could be an interesting direction to take our research to the next level, essentially.
Yes, question,
Yeah.
Eric.
Eric here.
Yeah, you just said you said you posted an analysis. I'm asking. Hopefully, I wonder if there's anything that I could read about it. That sounds pretty interesting.
I actually just threw a link to it in the doc.
Thank you.
Perfect. Always helpful.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Vasco.
Hey guys, so last week I almost finished all the PRs regarding IPNS over PubSub on GSLand. They will hopefully be reviewed this week and afterwards merged. In the meanwhile, I will also make interop tests for this. Afterwards, I will start probably looking at the DHT interop and IPNS over DHT also on GS side, and it will be it for me. Any questions? No. Thank you.
Okay, looks good. John.
All right, so I was only working the early part of last week, so pretty much DHT day on Wednesday was the last thing I've been part of because I'm only working part-time. My current plan is to start implementing the disjoint path lookup in the DHT so that multiple lookups don't reuse the same node. I'm going to start doing that in JavaScript this week and then move on to Go after I'm done with JavaScript.
Okay, Jacob, and by the way, I sent an email to connect you guys on some IPTV stuff. Yeah, so there's not overlap. So yeah, I think you saw that. Okay, Jacob.
Yeah, so last week I was pretty much finishing up the delegated routing stuff. I demoed that in the IPFS all hands, but it did not get recorded, so I will probably try to do a recording at some point of that. I just need to get the demo up there, and Lars is working on finishing up the Go IPFS implementation of that, hopefully this week or next week. And I'm currently working on updating JS libp2p switch to make that whole thing, including connections, all state machine driven. So we can hopefully feed into the error handling and daemon functionality later on. Any questions?
Okay, Eric.
Me, Eric?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just really starting. The very first thing I'm looking at, I actually am not sure whether it works its way down to libp2p land. I know that little, but I'm working on faster directory listing of sharded directories, which is evidently an issue on some very large directories, which is kind of right in the realm of where we get data back from the DHT and how we decide to proceed. So it seems like a fruitful place to begin learning about the code. And I'll probably be pairing with Michael today and probably be looping Hannah in tomorrow to all stare at screens and be like, wow, this is crazy. And hopefully we'll learn better together that way. And I'll have more interesting stuff to report next week, or maybe this is a every 2 weeks meeting, but in the other meeting, maybe next week.
Steve.
Oh, hey, everybody. Steve Richmond here. I saw a lot of you on the IPFS call. I'm really here for a few different reasons. One is just to learn more. You guys are up to incredible things, and I'm seeing some of you for the first time. The other is to plug LabOS, which is a group here at Protocol Labs that I help lead. And one of our core functions is helping do planning. So the 27th of September is going to be the Q4 planning day for libp2p. So just everyone mark their calendars, and I'm sure Mike can kind of go deeper on that. Also,
could you repeat that date once more? Sorry.
27th of September. Also, we're looking, our mandate is really to support all the teams in the organization. So our repo is open. We have an open issue there. How can we support you better? As ideas come to mind, please hit that. We're going to do some work at Team Week to kind of prioritize and really start implementing some of these things. And you can see what's in flight and what's been proposed, but would love any feedback there as well. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, yeah. OKRs are one of the agenda items for today, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. And so you should stick around, Steve. Okay, Visa, what's up, man?
Hey guys, so well, the first thing I did was basically finish up the message signing PR. Now I think it's pretty much ready to merge. There is still an issue. Basically, we're not satisfied with having to spawn a go routine for every incoming message in order to enter the validation pipeline. But that's something that we decided to address in a follow-up PR because message signing is kind of an important feature for PubSub. So if Sebastian wants to give another round of review and so that we can merge it in as short enough. The other thing I started working on again, so I resumed work on the AutoNav implementation. So I added tests, and that again needs review, and I think it's pretty much ready to move on because basically what it does is that it creates a service that's that you can request to dial you back through a different cost object so that you can detect your network reachability situation, in a very practical way. And it also adds an ambient AutoNav discovery service. So basically, when you discover providers of this dialbug service, the alternate service, then you can use this ambiently to start trying dialbugs every now and then. And basically this gives you your NAT status. So the next step would be to figure out how to integrate this, into other things like IPFS, and I think a lot of things are going to need this. So I'm calling for review on that PR. That's about it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Michael, this is your first day, but if you have anything to say, feel free to share.
Yeah, just hello. Nice to meet everyone. Look forward to working with everyone. But otherwise, I'm just working through my my onboarding checklist, so nothing interesting to report.
Sounds good. Okay, let's move on to the agenda. I've lost the tab now. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so I was going to suggest, so we have 15 minutes. I was going to suggest that Stephen talk a little bit about these two utilities he's written, maybe even demo them or something, because I think they're really interesting and they can help us with debugging of protobuf stuff. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about the libp2p OKRs, and maybe give me like 5 minutes on that. And then I think Cole wanted to talk about the libp2p daemon. So let's go with Stephen.
Okay. So I was a bit bored. 1 second. Last night, so I decided to write two daemons, or sorry, not two daemons, two small commands for debugging libp2p. One is p2p-cat, and the other is protocat. p2p-cat, or if you're at the, again, I have to do the Go. Actually, maybe not with the IPFS all hands, but p2p-cat is a simple netcat-like utility for for libp2p. Protocat is a small utility for decoding and encoding protobufs. I can show my screen and do a very short demo. This is really simple. If I can share my screen, there we go. Okay, so see if this works. Are you guys seeing the terminal? Probably not.
It was there for, yeah, it's working. It's actually coming in and out for me.
I can't see it, so 1 second.
It keeps flashing.
Let's see if I can do that. Now, do you see it?
Much more stable, yeah.
Okay. Okay, we need a compositor. Okay, so the first thing you'll need to do is go get p2p-cat and protocat. I'm just going to run the command here. Run this command. It should install both of them. You have to put your GoPath bin in your GoPath. Next, for this command, we're actually going to go and identify a server. So I need to make sure we have the, if I can show this. I need to make sure we actually have the right protobufs. So I'm going to go get the identified protobuf. Next, we can decide which server we want to talk to. In this case, let's talk to a server called Mars. So I'm going to set the multi-header to that. This is just going to make the command simpler. Finally, we'll decide which protobuf we want to use. In this case, I'm going to use the identify protobuf. So the syntax here is, I have a bit of a shortcut where I've added the go path to the protobuf path. So you can give protobuf definitions relative to your go path. You can also give them, you can also give absolute protobuf definitions. But this is basically just like path to protobuf definition, drop the .proto, and add the message type. So this is from the identify.proto file, well, the identify type. It just simplifies things a bit. So I can set that up. And then the command is quite simple. Here it is. It starts out with p2p-cat. -v means, well, verbose, so it gives some status information versus standard error. -routed means it uses the routing system, so you don't have to manually put in the IP address. Matter is the multi-header we specified up here, this one. The protocol is IPFS ID 1.0.0, and then I'm just closing standard in because we don't actually set anything. Finally, I pipe the output to protocat. -L means that we're using a length delimited stream. So that means that every protobuf is prefixed by a length, or sorry, by a varchar length. and -d means decode, and then I'm specifying the protobuf to decode. You can also encode by specifying the protobuf and then actually typing the structure, but we're not going to do that here. Hit enter. It quickly, I'll go back here, bootstrapped, connected to Mars, failed to read standard in because of course I gave it, I closed it, and then it fetched the output. So yeah, you could also, again, if I go back in my history, I should have something. Let's see. No, I've changed the names a bit. Protocat. I changed things a bit since I last ran this command, but let's just quickly. Okay, so this should allow me to try to use the circuit relay. So it's connected. Now I can just send an empty request in this case. So that, and it's of course going to say, I can't do this. You could also say type stop, and then it's going to inform me. Oh, no, I can't use channel. I have to create a new one. So let's see. Stop. And it's going to say that I forgot to include a few things. So what this is doing is taking JSON, converting it to protobuf using the definition I gave it, sending it over to the other side, and then I'm getting back an answer and converting back to JSON. So yeah,
this is awesome.
Now I can stop sharing.
Yeah, very cool. Any quick questions? Or people can play with it on their own. I played with it this morning. It's very clear from the README how to use it. So, okay, thank you, Stephen. So, okay, so yeah, next thing is libp2p OKRs. I'll try to be brief here. Basically, if you look in the doc, I linked to the Q3 OKRs, so the quarter that's ending in the next few weeks. So we're now going to go into a planning process where we define the goals for the fourth quarter. And what I want to try to do is a couple things. First, the Q3 sheet became extremely complex, and I'm going to try to sort of minimize that complexity. I think it reached a point where it was hard to follow. We're also going to retro on the Q3 goals, how we did. So I'll need to ask y'all to do final scores for that, and then we're gonna. I think this is part of what's happening on the Thursday, the 27th. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but we'll talk about how we did on the previous OKRs and then present the new ones. Is that accurate summary, Steve?
Yeah. So it'll be about. It's going to be quick at the project level, though, for you, about 5 minutes on kind of your retro and what you discovered on Q3. Even though we won't quite be at the end of Q3 by then, we're going to kind of try to push that forward. And then the rest of the call, 10 minutes or so, just talking about plans for Q4.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so in addition to the spreadsheet being too complicated, I think there were two other problems with how we did Q3 OKRs. So first off, they ended up getting done in a room in Berlin, and it was sort of like whoever happened to be in that room at the time was dictating the OKRs. What I'd like to have this time is a more open, collaborative process where we do it over GitHub, everyone participates, and we just something a little more open than the 12 random people who happen to be in Berlin. The second thing I want to say is part of why that happened was I made a number of attempts to get folks to engage with the OKR process, and the JavaScript team did like A+ work, like they're excellent. The Go team was a little more kind of ignored my pings and seemed more reluctant to engage. So what I would like to suggest is I'm going to try to schedule an actual synchronous meeting. First, I'm going to post a doc async on GitHub, and I'm going to reach out to folks and ask people to propose items that should be in the OKRs. I'll define with David what the overall project OKRs are, so that's like the first tab of the spreadsheet. But then for the individual languages, I'm going to ask the teams to propose by looking at what the overall project goals are. And then I want to have a synchronous meeting like this one for us to discuss that. And will be open to the public. And I'm hoping that if we do all that right, we won't end up in a situation like last time where we were past the deadline, there were no OKRs, and so there happened to be these 10 or 12 people around, and we just pulled them all together and dictated them. So I'm asking for your cooperation to help avoid the situation that we had last time, and you'll hear more from me on that. The last thing I'll mention is what I'd really like to do is so me and David will define the overall project libp2p project goals for the quarter. My hope is that individual people might step up and take responsibility for Go, JS, and Rust. People from those teams. So we don't have to sort it out right now, but I would love it if other people stepped up. Not so much that I mind doing the work, but I think that I think it may bubble up things that as a PM I'm not really aren't really on my radar, but are actually important. So I might reach out to folks to volunteer if you're willing. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about OKRs. I just wanted to warn you it's coming. And yeah, that's what I got. Can we talk about libp2p daemon, Cole? Oh, sorry. Are there any questions right now? Okay, great. You'll be hearing a lot more about this topic. So if you have questions, you'll have ample.
And I guess to be clear, Mike, the quarter ends end of this month, right? So all of our reporting should be kind of reflective of that.
Right. And we're also trying a new thing that LabOS is driving, which is to set the OKRs before the quarter ends, so that when we hit the first day of October, the first day of Q4, we already have the OKRs defined.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, so I wanted to open a little discussion, I guess, about a libp2p daemon. This has been kind of requested in a couple of contexts. The original context that came across my plate was from some of the people working on Ethereum 2.0, working on the sharding implementation for Ethereum. And they're operating in Python and wanted to be able to abstract out the peer-to-peer networking layer from their implementation without fully implementing libp2p themselves. So they wanted to have like a peer-based routing daemon that they could RPC out to and manage communication. And then the other context, which is the main motivator for me, is getting interoperability testing working. So ideally, we could have a single specification, for, like command specification, where we could send, we could spawn up a libp2p daemon and then send commands to say, set up a host, attach a DHT to it, execute this query over it, expect this result, something like that. I think Stephen made a good point in the last meeting that it probably makes sense to treat them as completely separate use cases and not worry necessarily about huge design overlap. The more I don't know. I guess I'm very curious if people have like initial thoughts on like general design. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that I was like looking into the IPFS daemon, and Stephen, you might be a good person to give me a little insight on that. It looks like it's really heavily married to the Go IPFS code base. It also looks like it's kind of just wrapped over the default net HTTP library. So I was just wondering if there was, from like a reuse standpoint or extraction, modularity standpoint. So yeah, nothing to reuse there.
So there are things to reuse if you want to use like control the daemon, but for actual like high performance use of the daemon in different applications, we want to have an actual dedicated high performance RPC library.
Cool.
This is something you actually want for GoIPFS as well. So like the commands lib is great for like control stuff, less great for like high performance sockets and stuff like that.
Cool. So would I mean, my gut is that we want to be able to have bidirectional communication, which kind of rules out any sort of HTTP or even kind of classic RPC based, or I mean, unless we have two-way RPC, which could be interesting. But,
Sorry, another thing, may interrupt. So another thing we should definitely do is we should consider just offering a stream interface where you can open a stream and have the daemon connect to the other side and provide you the raw stream, or you can send your own prototypes. That would be valuable for doing low-level applications, that do arbitrary things.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea.
We have a connectivity later. So, and also, I would like to volunteer to help you out with the daemon because it's something that interests me. I want to write, like Gerbil bindings so that I can start doing stuff,
I would love that. So
yeah.
Maybe we can set up a call.
Right. Yeah, and we should do that. And the other things that I've been thinking is that we definitely want to support PubSub, like through the daemon. So PubSub is not something you can do by simply opening by using the stream interface. I mean, if you want to do your own complete implementation of our PubSub protocols, you can do that with the stream interface. But we should also have some high-level interface and something that does RPCs. Just like you guys suggested with doing DHT queries. It would be great if we would say, okay, please, connect to this open PubSub stream, and just give me the similar messages and interface to publish. So that's these are things that I would like to help out with.
Absolutely. Stephen, you had a question?
So the way I imagine it's like the first step would be allowing users to register custom protocol handlers and connect to custom protocols. So it's basically just stream, and that's it. So this would allow us to share connections between multiple applications, but it wouldn't do too much fancy stuff. The next step would be allowing users to actually have sub peers behind their daemon. So again, they could share, they can have their own peer ID, their own system, that's sort of this separate application, but it's sharing the connections from the main daemon. Yeah, that's basically an idea. So we can also have we'll also want external services. So it'd be actually nice to break out the DHT and stuff like that, separate daemons that all connect to the GoIPFS daemon. But that's a bit tricky. Or not GoIPFS, sorry, GoIPFS daemon, but that's a bit tricky.
I think you've both kind of hit on something that's definitely useful in that of a simple low-level core that we could wrap with the daemon would just be peer and or content routing, and then just kind of opening up streams on top of that. I think that sounds great. I think so I guess I'm envisioning then something where you could kind of interact with the peer store and then interact with the host for opening connections. And then I guess you could kind of have some sort of, if it was bidirectional, you could actually have push messages over streams, WebSockets, for example. Otherwise, you could poll for a stream ID that you've created. Does something like that sound reasonable?
We also have this whole wonderful networking library called libp2p. So we can use that to communicate with the daemon itself. So I expect what will actually happen is end user applications will use a subset of libp2p to communicate with the main libp2p daemon. So they use the stream multiplexers and stuff like that. We probably want to get rid of encryption, and we want a better transport. Personally, I would try implementing a very low-level Unix socket-based transport that can even pass file descriptors. But that gets a bit tricky. But this is start with the simplest thing you can do, and then work from there.
Yeah, and I guess that does at least help us execute on the DHT tests. It wouldn't be useful for the Ethereum folks, but that's a great first step. Vizo, you had something?
Yeah, I think that level 0, what we should start with the baseline is the ability to open new streams and create a stream handler. So basically just have our libp2p daemon be a normal peer in libp2p land, and we can specify how it connects. And basically just have an interface for saying, hey, open a stream on this protocol to this peer. So just that's level 0. So that we can even implement, DHT clients in other languages. So that should be our fundamental functionality. And then we can think about adding, whole subsystem interfaces. But having the bidirectional streams and registering stream handlers, that would be a great start, I think, for the daemon.
So I think that is good and also keeps it very focused in the core. So could I jot down that essentially like peer store interaction for the sake of adding peer IDs and stuff when you need to get bootstrapped, and stream management, opening, reading, writing, closing. Does that sound like a reasonable first start? Cool. I'm just going to jot that down really quick. Hold on one moment. And then I guess, so go ahead, Mike.
We're 6 minutes over, so maybe we can talk about this on IRC, but I'm just trying to understand what the interface to the daemon is going to be. Is like a REST API, or I'm confused about that, but maybe let's take that over to IRC because I don't want to keep people late.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, everybody, and I'm excited to get started on this. Mike, if you want to wrap us up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that was it. I mean, that's it for the agenda, so thank you, everyone, for coming. I will post the video as soon as it converts later today, so have a good week.
Bye.